This Sunday, it's February 2nd. February 2nd is 40 days after Christmas, and so we celebrate the presentation of the Lord. Because according to Mosaic Law, the firstborn son was presented in the temple 40 days after his birth. So as we'll hear in our gospel today, Mary and Joseph, faithful Jews, presented Jesus in the temple 40 days after his birth. Our first reading is from Malachi 3, verses 1 to 4. And Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament. The prophet Malachi addresses the spiritual apathy of Israel after the Babylonian exile. The prophet in our passage that we hear today speaks of the future coming of the Lord into his temple, foreshadowing what we'll hear in the gospel of our Lord Jesus indeed coming into the temple. Our second reading is from Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 to 18. Now, the letter of Hebrews is addressed to the Jewish Christians, letting them know that the new covenant sacrifice completely replaces all of the Old Testament sacrificial economy. Our passage this Sunday highlights the incarnation of Jesus and his solidarity with humanity. By sharing in our flesh and blood, he becomes a merciful high priest who can empathize with our struggles. The passage emphasizes the victory of Christ over death and the devil, affirming his role in liberating humanity from sin and fear. Our gospel is from the Gospel of Luke, and it describes the presentation of Jesus in the temple, which did indeed occur 40 days after Jesus' birth. Mary and Joseph bring Jesus to the temple to fulfill the Mosaic Law. The presence in our gospel of Simeon and Anna highlight the anticipation that all of the Jewish people had for the coming of the Messiah. The example of Simeon and Anna, who waited in hope and faith for the coming of the Messiah, serves as an inspiration for all believers to remain vigilant and open to God's presence in their lives. Simeon proclaims that indeed Jesus is the light for revelation to the Gentiles, emphasizing that universal mission of Christ. He is the light of the world. And in fact, we will bless candles and start with a light procession to emphasize that light that comes through in the presentation of the Lord. This moment fulfills God's promise and the recognition of Jesus as the Messiah. Our gospel passage ends with that famous proclamation by Simeon to Mary that a sword will pierce your own soul, foreshadowing the suffering that will accompany Mary. The feast of the presentation of the Lord calls on all of us to reflect on our own lives and our own commitment that we make, the commitment our family makes to serving God, to being truly God's people.